We begin with growing concerns that China is playing an active role in supporting the Russian war effort in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says 2 Chinese citizens have been captured while fighting in the east of his country, and he accuses Beijing of bolstering the Russian army. The Chinese government is insisting that it is neutral.
Residents of Sumy are cleaning up after a Russian attack on the Ukrainian city last weekend. The missile strike killed more than 30 people in the deadliest attack so far this year. Ukraine claims Russians aren't fighting alone. These men are believed to be Zhang Rinbo and Wang Guanjun. The Ukrainian army says they are Chinese nationals who claim they are wound up fighting for Russia by accident.
In the
beginning, I thought it was just a normal job. I wanted to be a rehabilitation therapist. That was my job in China. Once I got to Russia, an intermediary service took care of all the arrangements for me.
This press conference was organized by the Security Service of Ukraine, or SBU, as they say, to show that it's not only Russia fighting against Ukraine. The detained men could be speaking under duress. It is impossible to verify their statements at this time. Kyiv reported capturing the man in eastern Ukraine a week ago. After President Zelenskyy published this video on his Facebook account, he accused China of bolstering Russia's military.
The
world has heard Beijing's statements about the importance of preventing escalation. However, involving Chinese citizens in this war is precisely an escalation, and it must be met with a principled response. You can't reinforce the occupying army while talking about peace.
China has denied sending any military personnel to fight against Ukraine. These captured men said they saw ads for joining the Russian army on heavily censored Chinese social media platforms, such as Kuaishou and Douyin. Some Russian ads on these platforms promised up to $63,000 a year, a strong sell for people in desperate situations. But some experts point out China can't censor all content, even if it wanted to.
Were there ads on social media from Russian organizations recruiting Chinese volunteers? I think, of course, yes. But it's likely deleted very quickly. However, China's total control over Chinese social media also shouldn't be overstated. Some things do appear, then they get removed. But later they show up in groups or private chats.
In response to the footage released by Kyiv, the Kremlin called China a strategic partner and said Zelenskyy was wrong. Russian state TV propaganda lashed out at the Ukrainian president.
Zelenskyy is literally going all in and clearly out of his mind due to drugs. He's trying to escalate the regional conflict into a world war. Today, he presented a frightened man of East Asian appearance, claiming that he was a Chinese soldier of Xi's, captured in Donbass.
This isn't the first time there have been allegations of foreigners fighting for Russia. This past January, Ukraine showed North Korean soldiers it claimed to have captured in Russia's Kursk region. During Putin's visit to North Korea last year, both countries pledged mutual military support in case of an attack. Some experts believe Russia would like to have a similar agreement with China.
Russia would indeed be interested in drawing China into this and asking for help, as with North Korea. But it has nothing to offer China in return.
The images of Chinese soldiers at a press conference in Kyiv don't match China's claims of neutrality. China might not have sent these 2 men to Donbass, but for Ukraine, any foreign support for Russia only increases the enemy's advantage on the battlefield.
Well, let's explore this with Elizabeth Wishnick, who's a senior research scholar and an expert in Chinese politics and Sino-Russian relations at Columbia University in the United States. Welcome to DW. As well as those two apparent Chinese soldiers we saw on the film, Ukraine claims to have identified at least 155 Chinese nationals fighting for Russia. What do you make of those claims?
Some claims have said that there have been more than 160, actually, Chinese fighting on behalf of Russia in Ukraine. I think it's very surprising because China has tried to stake out a position of neutrality in this conflict and has been consistently blaming the United States for escalating the conflict by the United States and NATO countries through their support for Ukraine. So evidence of Chinese directly involved on behalf of Russia certainly does not support that narrative. This being said, it seems that the Chinese who are fighting in Ukraine have gone so of their own accord, not through a Chinese-sponsored effort, and have been recruited either, as your program just showed, through online ads that were displayed on Chinese social media and sometimes on Russian social media when they were traveling in Russia as tourists.
Okay. And you believe that if China wanted to say one thing and do another, the idea of allowing its citizens to take part in a war in which it says it is neutral, you don't think they might just turn a blind eye to what's going on? You think this is happening without their knowledge or active participation?
Well, I don't know. They certainly have denied that they are behind these efforts by Chinese citizens to fight on behalf of Russia. And it as I just said, it contradicts their narrative of neutrality and trying to be the responsible world power that tries to resolve the conflict. On the other hand, even though China is an authoritarian state, it cannot control all of the movements of its citizens. There have been issues previously with unauthorized migration of Chinese citizens to Russia that complicated relations between the two countries. And sometimes localities might encourage movements by Chinese citizens that the central government is trying to avoid.
Okay. Just talk us...
However, I just want to say one more thing. I mean, it does, even if this is not what China desires in terms of its narrative, it does provide evidence of China's support for Russia, which China has also been trying to display.
Okay, and just talk. That was the point I was coming to. Talk us through China's role and how it actually does provide support for Russia. What does it do? What does it not do as part of that support?
Well, China has stopped just short of providing lethal aid directly to Russia for the war in Ukraine. China has been the key source of dual-use technologies, and there's been some reporting that some drones have been manufactured in Chinese cities for use in this war. But China has denied that it provides any lethal aid to Russia. So that has been the line. But Chinese dual-use items, chips, drone technologies certainly have reached the Russian war effort via third countries and also via shopping missions by Russians who go to China to acquire these items.
Okay, thanks for talking us through that. Elizabeth Wishnick from Columbia University.